Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're diving into,
Oh, nice.
we're going deep into the world of cybercrime
Yeah.
and digital security, focusing specifically on India's digital landscape.
Okay.
You've given us a really interesting mix of sources.
Mhm.
We have a technical presentation,
Yeah.
some news articles,
Mhm.
even some personal stories
Right.
about digital scams.
Wow.
And we are ready to break it all down for you
Okay.
and pull out the most important,
Oh, yeah.
surprising insights for you.
Cool.
So from what I'm gathering from the material you sent,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like you're really trying to understand
Right.
how these digital crimes actually work,
Mm-hmm.
how to protect yourself,
Yeah.
and maybe even get a glimpse of
Right.
what's going on
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
Am I right?
Yeah, and the source material does this really well.
Okay.
I mean, covering both the technical vulnerabilities
Yeah.
and the human psychology
Right.
that makes these scams.
So effective.
Yeah, so let's unpack this.
Okay.
Let's start with bank fraud in India.
Right.
One of the first things that really struck me
Mhm.
was the sheer scale of it.
Yeah.
It's not just individuals falling for scams.
Right.
The banks themselves seem to be getting hacked a lot more than we realize.
Yes, I think there's definitely a tendency to keep these incidents quiet
Oh, for sure.
to maintain public trust.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But if you think about the massive data leaks we've seen
Oh, yeah.
with millions of accounts compromised,
Right.
this points to vulnerabilities on their server side,
Okay.
not just individual mistakes.
So it's not just about us being careful with
Mhm.
our passwords
Yeah.
and OTPs.
Mhm.
There's a bigger issue with the security systems
Yeah.
used by the banks themselves.
Exactly. The source material specifically mentions weaknesses
Okay.
in bank server security related to AAA,
Okay.
authentication, authorization, and accounting. Okay, so break that down for us.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
So authentication is confirming the user's identity, like
Ah.
verifying your login details.
Yeah.
Authorization determines what a user can access or do
Right.
once they're in,
Permissions.
kind of like permissions, yeah.
Yeah.
Accounting is keeping track of user actions within the system.
Okay.
It's like a log of their activities.
Okay.
The problem is many banks focus mainly on authentication
Yeah.
and don't pay enough attention to authorization and accounting.
So a criminal might be able to get past that first security check,
Right.
but then have free reign
Exactly.
within the system.
That's how they can exploit
Wow.
seemingly secure systems to steal huge amounts of data and money.
That's scary.
Yeah.
But the sources did mention some good news,
Yeah.
right? I read that the RBI,
Mm-hmm.
the Reserve Bank of India,
Right.
has guidelines to protect victims of bank fraud.
Yes, this is a critical point.
Okay.
RBI guidelines actually mandate
Okay.
banks to reimburse 100% of fraud-related losses.
Wow. 100%.
Yes, if reported within 3 days.
Okay. So there's a catch.
There is.
Okay.
It's proving that the fraud wasn't your fault.
Oh, right.
Banks often try to blame victims
Right.
who admit to falling for scams
Yeah.
without fully investigating how the money was taken.
So what should someone do if they find themselves in that situation?
First, know your rights.
Okay.
You have the right to a thorough investigation
Right.
and a clear explanation from the bank.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to challenge them if they immediately blame user error.
Right.
If you're not getting a satisfactory resolution from the bank,
Mm-hmm.
consider taking your complaint to the RBI ombudsman.
That's good advice. So we've talked about vulnerabilities in traditional banking systems,
Mm-hmm.
but the sources also highlight some pretty mind-blowing new scams,
Right.
especially those powered by AI.
Uh-huh.
What stood out to you in this area?
I think the lines between science fiction and reality
Yeah.
are becoming increasingly blurred. Deepfake technology, voice cloning,
Right.
and readily available screen recording apps are being packaged into tools
Yeah.
that criminals can use with alarming ease.
One article mentioned a case where a company accountant
Yeah.
got scammed using deepfakes.
Right.
They actually created fake videos of his CEO and CFO
Oh, wow.
to trick him during a video call.
Oh, my goodness.
And that case
Mm-hmm.
actually had a really bizarre twist to it.
Oh, really?
The only reason the scam was discovered
Okay.
was because the accountant's wife
Mm-hmm.
had secretly installed a screen recording app on his phone.
Wow.
completely unrelated reasons.
Yeah.
But talk about accidental heroism, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's wild.
Wow.
But it also shows how everyday surveillance tools
Right.
can be repurposed
Yeah.
for criminal activity.
Oh, for sure.
It makes you think about the blurring lines
Yeah.
between personal and professional security. Protecting your work computer isn't enough anymore.
Right.
It's about your entire digital life.
Yeah, that's true.
And as these technologies become more sophisticated
Yeah.
and easier to access,
Uh-huh.
we need to be even more vigilant.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of vigilance,
Okay.
one of the things that surprised me was the information about juice jacking.
Right.
Can you explain what this is and why it's such a threat?
Juice jacking refers to a type of data theft
Okay.
that can occur when you charge your phone
Yeah.
using a public USB port.
Oh.
These ports can be tampered with
Oh, wow.
to install malware on your device or steal your data while you charge.
So even something as simple as plugging your phone in
Right.
to a public charging station could be risky.
It's a real threat, particularly in places like airports or train stations.
Yeah.
Even charging from someone's laptop, even if they seem friendly,
Right.
could be a way for them to access your data.
So what can we do to protect ourselves?
The safest option is to use a wall outlet for charging
Okay.
and avoid using any USB ports you don't completely trust.
Right.
Another good option is to use a data blocking charging cable,
Oh.
which allows power to flow through but blocks data transfer.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, another platform that was mentioned
mhm.
in the sources,
Yeah.
and one that seems to be a hub for both good and bad,
Right.
is Telegram.
Mm-hmm.
Many people switched to it for privacy
Mm.
after the WhatsApp Pegasus scandal,
Yeah,
but it sounds like it's become a bit of a double-edged sword.
that's a good observation.
Yeah.
While Telegram does offer strong encryption and anonymity,
Right.
these very features have made it attractive
Yeah.
for illegal activities as well.
Okay.
The source material actually claims
Okay.
that most people on Telegram aren't even using it to chat.
Really?
Yeah.
So what are they using it for?
It's become a marketplace
Okay.
for everything from pirated movies. Yeah.
And hacking tools to connecting with criminal networks.
So are we just jumping from one security illusion to another, trying to find a safe space, and then a new vulnerability pops up?
It's a constant challenge in the digital world.
Yeah.
We have to constantly adapt and stay informed.
Speaking of adapting,
Okay.
the sources also discuss the Adhar card, which is India's national identification system.
Right.
It sounds like misuse of Adhar data
Yeah?
is a big problem with unauthorized SIM cards and bank accounts being opened in victims' names.
You're right. And the casual way
Yeah.
people share photocopies of their Adhar card
Right.
for everyday transactions is a major contributing factor. People don't realize the risks
Right.
associated with sharing that information so freely.
So what's the solution? Should we just stop using Adhar altogether?
The UIDI website, which
Yeah.
manages Adhar, lets you download a masked version of your card.
Okay.
This version only shows the last 4 digits of your Adhar number,
Okay.
which is often enough for verification purposes.
So it's about being smart and
Right.
selective about what information we share, even with seemingly legitimate sources.
Yeah.
But thinking bigger picture for a moment,
Okay.
the sources also bring up a more philosophical question about data control
Yeah.
and the illusion of choice.
Right.
Even if we're careful with our own data,
Yeah.
who's really in control of it all?
That's a big question that needs more attention.
Yeah.
The limited number of data centers
Right.
and the dominance of a few cloud providers
Yeah.
raise concerns about who really holds the keys to our digital lives.
Right.
The source material suggests that those free cloud services we love
Yeah.
might actually be costing us our
Right.
data ownership and control.
It's like we're trading our privacy for convenience,
Yeah.
and that convenience.
Can easily be turned against us.
Yeah, for sure.
This leads to a larger discussion
Right.
about the potential for manipulation
Yes.
and the illusion of choice
Absolutely.
in the digital world.
Yeah.
Are we really in control of our online decisions, or are we being nudged and influenced in ways we don't even realize?
Right, and that's a great...
This deep dive is already blowing my mind.
Oh, good.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's
So much more to explore here,
so much.
from the rise of the dark web
Yeah.
to the possibility that world leaders are being blackmailed with hacked data.
Right.
Before we move on,
Okay.
is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I think we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember
Okay.
that all these seemingly separate issues,
Okay.
individual scams, national policies,
Mm-hmm.
global power dynamics,
Right.
are all connected in the digital age.
Yeah.
We'll dive deeper into those connections.
In the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Before we move on to the next topic,
Yeah.
I think it's worth circling back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
The idea that we might be trading our privacy for convenience in the digital world.
Yeah, you're right. That really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like we're constantly being asked to share more and more data,
Right.
and it's hard to know where the line is between convenience and risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the source material actually points to a specific year,
Okay.
2008,
Okay.
as a potential turning point.
All right.
Think about it. The dark web,
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin, the
Yeah.
iPhone,
Right.
and WhatsApp
Right.
all emerged around the same time.
Okay, so 2008 was a big year for tech,
Yeah.
but what's the connection?
The source material suggests
Yeah.
it wasn't just coincidence,
Okay.
but a deliberate effort to create a parallel,
Okay.
secure ecosystem for
Yeah.
a select few.
So you're saying that there might have been a plan behind all of this?
Well,
That's a bit of a conspiracy theory, isn't it? It's certainly an intriguing possibility.
okay.
The traditional story is that these technologies grew organically
Right.
from open source communities.
Mm-hmm.
But the source material questions that narrative,
Okay.
suggesting there might have been a hidden agenda behind their rapid adoption
Okay.
and widespread use.
So let's play devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay.
If there was a deliberate effort behind this,
Mm,
what would be the goal?
right.
Who would benefit from creating this kind of parallel system?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the source material doesn't offer a definitive answer,
Okay.
but it does raise some interesting points about the potential for control and manipulation.
Okay.
Imagine a world where a small group controls the flow of information,
Mm.
the currency we use,
Yeah.
and the devices we rely on for communication.
Yeah.
That's a lot of power.
It is,
And-
in very few hands.
And that power could be used for good or for evil, depending on who's wielding it.
Exactly.
Right? It could be a tool for liberation,
Yeah.
or it could be a tool for oppression.
And that's why it's so important to be aware of these possibilities,
Absolutely.
to question the stories we're told,
Right.
and to think critically about the technologies we use.
Yeah, let's break it down a bit.
Okay.
We've got the dark web,
Right.
this hidden part of the internet where all kinds of illegal activities take place.
Mhm.
We've got Bitcoin,
Yeah.
a decentralized digital currency that allows for anonymous transactions.
Right.
We've got the iPhone,
Yep.
a device that was initially marketed for its security and exclusivity.
Uh-huh.
And we've got WhatsApp,
Right.
a communication platform that, despite claims of end-to-end encryption,
Uh-huh.
has been shown to be vulnerable to hacking.
Right. So if you connect all these dots,
Yeah.
what kind of picture do we get?
It suggests a world where security and privacy are becoming commodities,
Okay.
available only to those who can afford them
Mm-hmm.
or are willing to operate outside traditional systems.
Right.
A world where those in power, whether governments or corporations,
Right.
could have unprecedented control over our lives.
Okay, now we're getting into some pretty unsettling territory.
Yeah.
The sources also mentioned that world leaders themselves
Mm-hmm.
could be vulnerable to blackmail or manipulation
Right.
because of hacked data.
This brings us back to the concept of zero-day vulnerabilities,
Okay.
which we mentioned earlier.
Right.
These are software flaws
Yeah.
that are unknown even to the developers,
Right.
making them incredibly valuable to hackers.
So let's say someone finds a vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
in, say, the software
Yeah.
on a president's phone.
Uh-huh.
They could exploit it before anyone even knows it exists.
Exactly.
Wow.
And there's a whole underground market for these vulnerabilities on the dark web.
Jeez.
Some companies might even intentionally delay releasing patches
Right.
for these vulnerabilities,
Oh.
allowing them to be exploited for longer.
Why would a company do that?
Yeah.
That seems incredibly irresponsible.
Unfortunately, it often boils down to profit.
Okay.
The longer a vulnerability exists,
Right.
the more valuable it becomes to certain buyers.
Okay.
And those buyers might be willing to pay a lot of money
Yeah.
to keep those vulnerabilities a secret.
So it's like a whole other level of cyber warfare
Yeah.
having behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about stealing money or data anymore.
Right.
It could be about influencing political decisions,
Yeah.
shaping public opinion,
Mm.
or even destabilizing entire countries.
These are very real possibilities in the digital age, and
Yeah.
as technology continues to advance,
Right.
the stakes will only get higher.
So we need to start asking ourselves tough questions
We do.
about who we trust, how we protect ourselves,
Yeah.
and what kind of future we want to build in this increasingly interconnected world.
Absolutely.
All this talk about vulnerabilities and hidden agendas is making me wonder if we're all just living in a digital Wild West
Yeah.
where there are no rules and anyone can be a target.
It can certainly feel that way sometimes,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to remember that we do have some control over our digital lives. We
Right.
can make choices that prioritize security and privacy,
Right.
and we can advocate for stronger regulations
Mm.
and more transparency from the companies that collect and control our data.
So it's a combination of individual action and systemic change.
Right.
We need people to be more aware and proactive,
Yeah,
and we need institutions to step up and create a safer digital environment.
absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that's a good point to transition to the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll talk more about what those individual actions and systemic changes might look like,
Right.
and how we can all work together to navigate this complex digital landscape.
Okay, so we've talked about individual actions and systemic change.
Right.
We need people to be more aware and proactive,
Mm-hmm.
and we need institutions to step up
Mm-hmm.
and create a safer digital environment
Right.
for everyone.
Yeah.
But let's zoom in a little bit more
Right.
and focus on what all this means for us
Right.
in our daily lives.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed
Right.
and like there's nothing we can do to protect ourselves
Yeah.
in this digital Wild West.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
But it's important not to give in to
Right.
fear or apathy.
Yeah.
The threats are real and constantly evolving,
Yeah.
but so are the solutions.
Okay, give us some hope.
Okay.
What are some practical steps we can take
Mm-hmm.
to be more digitally secure?
The first and most important step is being mindful of your digital footprint.
Okay.
Think about the information you share online, both personally and professionally.
Right.
Are you comfortable with that information being out there?
Mm-hmm.
If not,
Yeah,
take steps to limit what you share.
that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
But what about the technical side of things? What are
Okay.
some concrete actions we can take?
Start with the basics.
Okay.
Use strong, unique passwords for all your accounts,
Right.
and don't rely on your memory.
Yeah.
Use a password manager to
Right.
keep track of them.
Right.
Enable two-factor authentication whenever possible.
Okay.
It adds an extra layer of security.
Okay.
And always be wary of phishing scams and suspicious links.
Okay. That's good advice.
Yeah.
But it's also stuff we've all heard before.
Right.
What about staying ahead of the curve?
Okay.
Especially with these new AI-powered scams
Mhm.
popping up.
Yeah.
What are some tools or strategies we
Right.
might not know about?
You remember that case we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
The accountant who was scammed using
Yeah.
deepfake videos?
Yeah, where the wife accidentally saved the day with that screen recording app.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tools like that can be incredibly helpful,
Right.
even if you don't suspect anything.
Uh-huh.
Having a record of what's happening on your phone can be crucial
Okay.
if you ever need to prove that you were manipulated
Right.
or that your account was compromised.
So it's like having an extra set of eyes watching out for you.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's not just about protecting your devices.
Okay.
It's also about being aware of social engineering tactics
Right.
that criminals use.
Okay.
These tactics prey on our trust and our desire to help.
Right.
Don't be afraid to question requests for personal information,
Oui.
even if they seem to come from a legitimate source.
Right.
Verify everything
Right.
and never feel pressured to make a decision on the spot.
Trust but verify.
Yes,
That's a good motto for the digital age.
right.
What if, despite our best efforts,
Mhm.
we find ourselves in a situation
Yeah,
where we think we've been scammed
okay.
or our data has been compromised?
Don't panic.
Okay.
Take a deep breath and report it.
Okay, so report it.
Report it to your bank, the police,
Okay.
or a cybercrime reporting platform.
Okay.
It might feel embarrassing or overwhelming,
Right.
but it's important to document what happened
Okay.
and take steps to mitigate the damage.
And don't let those big institutions intimidate you. Remember, you have rights as a consumer.
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself
Right?
and demand a thorough investigation.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about individual actions,
Yeah.
but what about systemic change?
Okay.
What could be done at a higher level
Mhm.
to make the digital world safer for everyone?
We need stronger regulations to protect consumers.
Okay.
And we need more transparency from tech companies
Brilliant.
about how they're collecting and using our data.
Uh-huh.
Education is also key.
Right.
We need to teach digital literacy skills
Okay.
from a young age so that people can understand the risks and how to navigate the digital world safely.
So it's a collective effort.
It is.
Individuals need to be aware and proactive.
Right.
But institutions also need to step up and create a safer digital environment for everyone.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
If even the most secure technologies can be compromised,
Yeah.
and if even world leaders are vulnerable to these threats, where does that leave us in a world increasingly reliant on these systems?
It's a big question.
It is.
And one that doesn't have an easy answer.
Yeah.
But it's a question we all need to be asking ourselves as we move forward in this rapidly evolving digital world.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you today.
Yeah, likewise.
Remember, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And with that power comes responsibility.
Right.
Use it wisely.
Okay.
Stay curious. Stay informed.
Yeah.
And most importantly, stay safe out there in the digital world.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thanks.
We hope you've learned something new, gained a fresh perspective, and feel empowered to navigate the complexities of the digital age. Until next time, keep learning,
All right.
be questioning, and keep diving deep.
Yeah.